Millionaire's wife leaves her daughter's nanny search, and a new love story begins. In this captivating video, we witness how the seemingly mundane task of finding a nanny evolves into a journey of emotional growth and unexpected love. The story unfolds with a series of intriguing events, leading our protagonist to cross paths with individuals who bring warmth and light into her world. As she navigates this new phase, she discovers the power of vulnerability and the beauty of human connections. If you're excited about this story, please let us know. If you enjoyed the video, please press 1. If not, press 0. Your feedback has inspired me to collect more uplifting and meaningful stories.
What if the cure for a broken heart was where you least expect it? Alexander Grant, a widowed millionaire consumed by grief, never imagined that his children's charming young nanny would bring not only laughter, but also a new chance at love into his home. At the most crucial point in his journey, Alexander is faced with the decision to open his heart, risking everything for an unexpected fresh start, a step that could unite his family forever, or break the bonds he is trying to rebuild. Alexander Grant watches the sunrise over the horizon of the Pacific Ocean, just as he has done every day since he moved into his house in Malibu. The large, modern property rests imposingly on the cliffs, with glass walls that let you see the ocean, but an aura of emptiness seems to spread through every room. The house is large and silent, and the sounds that once filled the space, the wife's laughter, the children's play, now seem like ghosts from a lost time. Every corner seems organized and perfect, reflecting a home where nothing is out of place, as if the order of the objects could somehow balance his emotional life. Alexander always wakes up at 5 in the morning, drinks a bitter coffee, and with meticulous steps crosses the room to reach the office, where he dedicates himself to administrative tasks. As an entrepreneur, he finds a useful distraction in the routine of meetings, emails, and documents. Work, once a passion, is now just a way to pass the time, to occupy his mind with something that prevents him from thinking about what he has lost. Alexander lost his wife in a tragic accident 2 years ago. Since then, his interactions with the outside world have been strictly professional. Her absence has transformed the environment that was once full of laughter and light into a routine of loneliness. For him, every social encounter, even family ones, sounds like a constant reminder of his pain. His children, Jacob and Emily, are the most tangible remnants of his former happy life, but the relationship between them and their father is distant. He loves them, but nevertheless finds it difficult to express the affection and attention he desires. Alexander's children still try to get their father's attention in some way. Jacob, aged 8, already understands that his father has an aura of sadness, and his attempts to get closer are subtle. He watches his father, eager for a word of encouragement, a sign that Alexander is there for him. Emily, the youngest, aged 6, is sweet and sensitive. She loves to bring her father drawings she makes at school and patiently waits for the praise that rarely comes. But despite the children's best efforts, the distance between them is almost palpable. Alexander sits down with them for dinner, but conversations never flow easily. He even tries hard to start dialogues, but it's as if the words lose their meaning before they're even spoken. Over time, Alexander realizes that the emotional emptiness of the house affects his children. He sees that the lack of a welcoming presence is silently shaping them, and guilt accompanies him. His wife, who was always so loving and involved, was the one who really managed to convey love and care to the children. He observes how she knew how to involve the children in activities, create a home where they felt safe and loved, something that is now missing. The weight of responsibility hits him hard one night as he finds himself alone in the living room after putting the children to bed. He feels powerless, unable to offer his children what they really need. That evening, he walks to his office and spends some time in silence looking at the bookcase. Among the volumes, he finds a photo of his wife with the children, and the image makes him reflect. The memories of the happy family lead him to a painful realization. He needs help to fill the void in the house. The idea of hiring a nanny emerges slowly with the reluctance of someone who avoids facing reality. Alexander doesn't want a stranger in the house, and the memory of his wife makes him hesitate to share the space with someone else. But the need for someone to bring lightness and comfort to the home becomes more urgent every day. Alexander feels that, without a change, the children could lose the joy that comes so naturally to them. An experienced nanny who knows how to deal with children and has patience and affection may be the answer. He hopes that this person will bring some color to the grey environment that his house has become. After some thought, he decides to investigate his options. On his computer, Alexander starts researching specialist agencies, scrolling through dozens of profiles. He examines CVs, qualifications, and references, looking for someone who goes beyond technical skills. He wants someone who can understand pain and grief, someone who can gradually help children regain the sparkle in their eyes. He hesitates a little before filling in the form and sending the application to the agency, but he feels more determined than ever to make the change. Even with his mind made up, Alexander's heart is heavy. He wonders if this choice doesn't represent a definitive break with his wife's memory, and deep down he's afraid that no one will be able to fill the role of loving figure that he knows his children deserve. However, as he recalls the lifeless conversations he has with Jacob and Emily, he feels strengthened in his decision. That night, he closes his computer in the hope that soon someone will be able to ease the burden of responsibility he feels and help his family rediscover a happiness that seems lost. Alexander waits restlessly in his office. He selects a few candidates for the position of nanny, but none fit what he imagines for his children's lives. Many of them seem formally qualified, but he feels that something is missing, that touch of lightness that his home needs. After several interviews, Alexander begins to believe that perhaps he has been too demanding. He finds himself close to giving up on the idea when he receives Olivia Lane's CV. Something about her profile immediately catches his eye. Olivia, at 28, has solid experience and a series of excellent references. But what really intrigues him is a quality described in one of her recommendations: able to bring peace and joy to the places where she works. This description seems to fit exactly the atmosphere that Alexander wants to rebuild in his home. He contacts Olivia and arranges an interview for the following day. At the agreed time, Olivia shows up at the mansion, and at first glance, Alexander notices her serene expression and relaxed posture. She smiles easily, a genuine smile that immediately puts him at ease. They sit down in the study, and Alexander begins the interview. Olivia responds calmly and empathetically, sharing details about the families she has worked with before. She mentions her passion for creating safe and loving environments for children, seeking to be a presence that inspires trust and friendship. Alexander realizes that she not only understands the practical tasks, but also the importance of a welcoming home. As Olivia speaks, Alexander finds himself considering not only her competence, but how she could fill the emotional gap in the house. After the interview, Alexander invites Olivia to meet the children, who are waiting upstairs, curious. He takes her to the room where Emily and Jacob are. The children's gazes initially reveal a certain shyness. They stand close together, watching the new visitor cautiously. Olivia, however, shows an instinctive sensitivity as she bends down to meet them both and gives them a warm smile. She starts a light and amusing conversation, asking about their favorite toys and what they like to do. Emily, always more expansive, responds quickly and begins to show Olivia one of her drawings. Jacob, more reserved, watches, but gradually relaxes, attracted by his sister's enthusiasm. Within minutes, Alexander sees his children interacting with Olivia in a natural way, something rare since the loss of their mother. He doesn't fail to notice the change in atmosphere, as if a new energy had invaded the space. He feels relieved, almost surprised, to witness the first signs of enthusiasm in his children. Observing the scene, Alexander allows himself a brief smile. He realizes that the decision to hire Olivia could really transform his children's lives. When the visit is over, he thanks her and escorts her out. After a moment's thought, he makes the final decision. Olivia will be the children's new nanny. He officially hires her the next day, and she starts work straight away. On Olivia's first day at work, Alexander chooses to observe from afar, allowing her and the children to create an authentic connection. In the morning, he finds the three of them in the kitchen, where Olivia prepares coffee with a touch of relaxation that is completely at odds with the serious routine that prevailed. Emily and Jacob take part in the preparation of the food, animated, and Alexander notices that the children are more talkative and smiling than usual. Olivia handles the small tasks calmly, encouraging the children to get involved and turning each activity into a light and joyful experience. Alexander retires to his office, but from time to time he hears the sound of the children's laughter echoing through the house, something he hasn't heard for a long time. Their interaction with Olivia seems to flow naturally, without barriers or discomfort, and Alexander feels a hint of hope. Olivia's presence begins to break down the atmosphere of tension in the house, and at that moment he realizes that his choice was the right one. As the day progresses, Alexander meets Olivia and the children in the garden, where she organizes a little treasure hunt. The children run around the lawn, excited by the activity, while Olivia guides them with a firm but affectionate gentleness. He allows himself to observe the scene, impressed by Olivia's ability to turn a simple game into a learning and fun experience. The house, which previously seemed so austere and rigid, begins to take on a light and cozy atmosphere. When night falls and the children go to bed, Alexander thanks Olivia for the day's work. She smiles and responds with humility, expressing her happiness at being part of the family's life. He watches her face as she speaks, noticing the sincerity in her gaze, and feels grateful to find someone who understands the significance of the mission she undertakes there. The connection between them is palpable, and Alexander finds himself, for the first time in a long time, looking forward to the days ahead and what Olivia will bring to their lives. Alexander returns to his room that night with a sense of relief and serenity that he hasn't experienced for a long time. He contemplates what he has seen throughout the day, the change in his children, and the renewed energy that Olivia's presence brings to the house. For the first time since the loss of his wife, he feels that perhaps the home can really become a place of joy again, where he and the children can find happiness. In the first few days, Olivia integrates into the routine with a naturalness that surprises Alexander. She begins to create activities and games for Emily and Jacob, always stimulating their curiosity and creativity. The house, which previously seemed heavy and full of silence, now takes on a new energy. Alexander observes Olivia from a distance, noticing the affection and patience with which she relates to her children. He notices that she doesn't just take care of the basic chores. On the contrary, her dedication to the small details makes every moment with the children something special. One sunny afternoon, Olivia takes Emily and Jacob out into the garden for an impromptu gardening lesson. She teaches the children how to plant small seedlings and look after the flowers. Emily attentively watches Olivia's every move, while Jacob, more reticent at first, finally gets involved in the activity. Alexander watches the scene from the balcony, intrigued by the change in his children's expressions. The purity of the moment moves him, and he realizes that Olivia is not just a nanny for the children. She is a source of learning and emotional connection, something he knows is essential for their well-being. When night falls and the children are already in bed, Alexander finds himself in the kitchen, where Olivia is finishing organizing some things. The house is silent, but this time the silence is comfortable, almost welcoming. Alexander breaks the mood with a heartfelt thank you. He mentions the positive impact he's noticed on his children since his arrival. Olivia smiles, with a genuine sparkle in her eyes, and replies that she feels happy to contribute to the children's joy and to give the home an energy of hope. Her frankness and humility touch Alexander in an unexpected way. He is surprised by her desire to continue the conversation, to share a little more of herself. Over the next few evenings, Alexander and Olivia end up meeting casually in the kitchen. The conversations that arise are simple, but full of meaning. He talks about his childhood and his life before becoming an entrepreneur. Olivia listens attentively, showing a genuine interest that he hasn't experienced for a long time. He finds himself revealing stories he doesn't tell anyone, as if, in that instant, her presence encourages him to be himself without reservations. Olivia also shares details of her own history, which makes Alexander see how much more she is than a dedicated nanny. She talks about moving to Malibu and the challenges of adapting to a new reality. She mentions her desire to help children and families overcome trauma, a purpose that she says gives meaning to her work. Alexander listens with admiration, realizing that Olivia carries within her a silent strength, something he now sees far beyond professionalism. However, between these conversations and their growing acquaintance, Alexander begins to realize that his interest in Olivia goes beyond what he expected. His admiration for her is mixed with a sense of fascination that he tries to suppress, afraid of confusing his need for support with a deeper desire. He wonders if this unexpected attraction stems from an emotional need, or if there really is something special between them. The thought makes him uneasy, and he tries to be extra careful to avoid confusing the roles. However, the way Olivia smiles, or the simple fact that the children seem happier around her, makes this internal barrier break down little by little. He notices that her gaze conveys security and peace, and this makes him question his own feelings. Alexander realizes that her presence awakens something he thought he would never feel again, and at the same time he feels torn between guilt and the need to be honest with himself. One sleepless night, Alexander finds himself walking down the corridor to the kitchen, where he finds Olivia finishing a cup of tea. They exchange smiles, and he feels that this is a special moment, a space of their own in the midst of routine. They talk about the children, and without realizing it, end up touching on more personal subjects. He feels he could spend hours there, listening to her quiet voice and sharing his own thoughts, and the bond between them grows without both of them realizing it. The intensity of the attraction that begins to emerge frightens Alexander. He fears that he is violating his wife's memory by allowing himself to feel something for someone else. His closeness to Olivia becomes a delicate point, and he struggles not to give in to what he feels, no matter how inevitable it seems. With every conversation, every shared smile, he realizes how much this bond strengthens. At the same time, a sense of guilt accompanies him, as if he were betraying the past. Despite everything, Alexander can't avoid the long exchanges of glances or the moments of complicity that arise between them. He tries to keep his wits about him and set limits, but her affection for the children, her attention to small details, and the authenticity she exudes in every gesture make him question whether it's really possible to ignore what he feels. The situation becomes a dilemma, and he knows he needs to understand better what he really wants before making any decisions. That night, he goes to bed feeling the weight of conflicting emotions, not knowing how to deal with this new reality. As he closes his eyes, he sees Olivia's smile and wonders what the future holds for them both. The desire to protect the environment she has created for their children contrasts with the need to confront his own feelings. Alexander understands that the road ahead is uncertain, but recognizes, albeit unwillingly, that perhaps Olivia has become much more than a nanny in his life. Doubt takes hold of Alexander, and he spends his days torn between the need to move on and loyalty to the past. His feelings for Olivia become a silent conflict, and he wonders if he is betraying his wife's memory by allowing himself to develop such intense affection. Each day with her confronts him with this new reality, and he feels the need to reflect. To find clarity, Alexander decides to talk to Richard, his longtime friend and confidant. Richard has known Alexander since he was young and is one of the few people who have witnessed the depth of the grief that has affected him. When he makes the appointment, Alexander finds himself hesitating. He knows that talking about his feelings can expose his vulnerabilities, but he realizes that keeping his feelings repressed only adds to his confusion. One quiet evening, he welcomes Richard to the mansion and gradually shares his impressions of Olivia and the impact she has on his life and that of the children. As he listens, Richard encourages him to recognize the importance of his own feelings and reminds him that love for his wife need not prevent new connections, especially when he meets someone who makes him feel alive. Richard notes that time and experience teach you to value every moment. He says that moving on doesn't mean disrespecting the past, and suggests that Alexander allow himself to explore what he feels without fear. Hearing these words, Alexander feels an unusual lightness, as if, for the first time, he has the right to consider this possibility. The conversation gives Alexander a new lease of life, and he begins to see Olivia in a different light, with more acceptance and less guilt. Over the next few days, Alexander observes Olivia with a fresh set of eyes. She continues her routine with the children, and he notices how every moment with her strengthens the emotional connection in the house. He feels more and more tempted to express his feelings, and living in close proximity makes his desire to share what he feels intensify. One afternoon, when Olivia organizes an art activity for Emily and Jacob, he watches her with a mixture of admiration and affection. The lightness with which she conducts each family moment moves him, and Alexander begins to consider the idea of revealing his feelings. One of the following nights, Alexander finds Olivia in the living room after the children have gone to sleep. The quiet atmosphere and the conversation that arises between them create an atmosphere of complicity, and Alexander feels that the right moment to talk has finally arrived. He watches her, and a mixture of courage and nervousness pushes him to open up. He comments on the positive impact her presence has brought to the house, and mentions how she has managed to transform the atmosphere of sadness into something welcoming and full of hope. Olivia listens attentively, with a serious yet receptive look on her face. At the end of his outburst, Alexander mentions, with an honesty that surprises him, that he's beginning to develop deep feelings for her, and this statement becomes a milestone in their relationship. He expresses his fear that he is confusing his emotions, but makes it clear that he feels something real. Olivia remains silent for a moment, reflecting on what he has said. Finally, she confesses that she also feels a special connection with him, but admits that she fears the implications of this bond. The conversation flows naturally, but the reality of their surroundings weighs heavily on them. Olivia mentions her own insecurities, explaining that she fears how the relationship might affect the children and the impact that other people's opinions might have on what they are building. Alexander understands her point of view, but argues that the bonds between them and the joy she has brought to their children's lives represent something he doesn't find in just anyone. They agree to reflect together on what they really want, and Alexander feels hopeful when he sees that although there are obstacles, the sincerity they share can give their relationship strength. From that moment on, they both find themselves in a phase of discovery. Alexander decides to open up more to Olivia, allowing her to get to know parts of him that he keeps hidden even from himself. They begin to discreetly plan ways of integrating the bond without generating conflict for the children, valuing the trust they have built up. With every exchange of glances and smiles, Alexander and Olivia recognize that, even in the face of all the challenges, there is a connection between them that deserves to be experienced. Alexander observes the progress of their relationship with an unprecedented serenity, and Olivia's gaze reflects the same hope. They both understand that the journey won't be easy, but they feel determined to take it one step at a time, without rushing. At the end of a conversation, they agree that they will keep their relationship discreet until they feel that the right moment to share it with the children and the family has really arrived. For Alexander, this decision brings a sense of peace. He feels comfortable having Olivia's support, and the relationship of complicity that is born between them goes beyond words. For the first time, he allows himself to dream of a future in which they can all build a happy home together. This dream doesn't erase the past, but turns it into a foundation for something new and possibly even more profound. As they say goodbye that evening, Alexander feels a sense of relief. He and Olivia exchange a complicit smile, knowing that what they feel is real, and that, despite the difficulties, they are both willing to build this path together. Alexander retires to his room with a sense of purpose, aware that now, more than ever, life presents him with a chance to be happy and, alongside Olivia, give his children the love they so desperately need. Alexander finds himself becoming more and more involved with Olivia, and the attraction between them manifests itself in the small details of everyday life. When they exchange glances or share moments of complicity with the children, they both experience a deep connection that transcends any explanation. However, this closeness begins to generate tension, and they both hesitate to move forward, fearing that their relationship could have an impact on the family dynamic and the children's routine. Olivia, realizing the intensity of what she feels, begins to subtly pull away. She maintains the same care and affection for the children, but avoids long conversations alone with Alexander, and the change in her behavior does not go unnoticed. He notices that the atmosphere, once light and full of laughter, now carries a delicate tension. Their interactions become formal, and the smile Olivia always offers seems more restrained, as if an invisible boundary now separates them. Alexander senses Olivia's emotional absence and tries to understand what is really going on. He respects the space she chooses to maintain, but the longing for the bond they were building begins to bother him deeply. He then finds himself reflecting on what he needs to do to regain the trust and spontaneity that united them from the start. Determined not to let her fear destroy what they both feel, Alexander plans a family activity in the hope of creating a pleasant moment and restoring the atmosphere of lightness and fun. On a sunny Saturday, he organizes a walk to a nearby recreational area where the children can play freely. Olivia hesitates to accept the invitation, but Emily and Jacob's obvious joy convinces her to join in. On the way, Alexander observes how the children radiate happiness and notices Olivia's smile as she watches them. The surrounding nature seems to revitalize everyone's spirit, and Alexander sees it as an opportunity to reconnect with it in a natural way. When they arrive, Emily and Jacob run to the playground, and Alexander and Olivia remain watching side by side. He starts chatting casually, trying to broach subjects that will break the ice between them. He mentions how much he appreciates the care she shows the children and the positive impact her presence has on the family. Olivia, although hesitant, recognizes what he is saying and admits that she also feels a special connection. While the children are playing, Alexander proposes that they both join in the fun. He runs along with the children, and Olivia joins in, and within a few minutes the atmosphere becomes relaxed. Everyone plays and laughs, and Alexander notices that the invisible wall between him and Olivia is starting to disappear. When everyone gathers for a picnic, he feels at ease for the first time in a long time and realizes that at that moment, everyone there feels like a family. The day goes smoothly, and Alexander notices that the atmosphere around them regains the warmth and lightness he had longed for. When Olivia gets up to help the children choose a new game, Alexander watches her, admiring her ability to turn even the simplest activities into unique experiences. He wonders if, at last, the barrier separating them is beginning to crumble. Her smiles, now more open, reflect a mixture of affection and relief, and Alexander feels the closeness between them grow stronger. At the end of the day, when they return home, Alexander feels a sense of peace. He realizes that the walk has restored some of the trust that seemed to be under threat, and the connection between him and Olivia emerges more strongly. As he watches her say goodbye to the children and prepare to leave, he calls her and thanks her for the special day, mentioning how happy it makes him to see them together. Olivia smiles, and for a brief moment they both exchange a look that carries all the words they avoid saying. Without needing to speak, they understand that the feeling between them is mutual, and that, despite their insecurities, the attraction persists. Over the next few days, Alexander and Olivia start to interact more lightly. They resume their nightly conversations, and the trust between them grows again. Alexander finds himself wishing for this harmony to continue, but feels that eventually he will have to confront his doubts and fears once and for all. As the children continue to show joy at Olivia's side, he realizes that perhaps his children's happiness depends directly on the courage he will have to accept his feelings and embrace a new phase of life. During a private conversation, Alexander touches on the subject of the fears they both feel. He mentions the importance of acting cautiously, especially for the sake of the children, but also shares his desire to live this relationship to the full. Olivia listens, and this time she agrees, showing that she is willing to face the uncertainties in order to build something meaningful. They both decide that in the meantime, they will keep their relationship discreet, waiting for the right moment to integrate this new aspect of their lives without causing confusion for the children. This decision marks a maturing phase for Alexander and Olivia. They establish a solid foundation of respect and complicity, and this alliance is reflected in their daily interactions. Over time, the initial tension disappears completely, and Alexander begins to realize that the connection with Olivia provides something invaluable for him and his children. He understands that this new stage is a fundamental step in their journey. That night, as he reflects on the moments shared with Olivia and the children, Alexander feels a tranquility he hasn't experienced for a long time. He allows himself to imagine a future with her, where they can live genuinely and build a happy family. Even with the decision to keep the relationship discreet, he recognizes that, more than ever, this choice represents a definitive change in his life and in the lives of his children. The days go by, and Alexander and Olivia keep their relationship a secret, as agreed, but the connection between them grows stronger with each passing moment. Olivia takes part in the daily activities of the house with natural ease, and the children, happier and more confident, clearly demonstrate the positive impact of her presence. Emily and Jacob approach her with a spontaneous affection, something that Alexander values and which reaffirms how much Olivia has become an indispensable part of the family. On a quiet afternoon, Alexander invites Olivia for a chat on the balcony, where the view of the ocean stretches to the horizon. He feels the need to clarify feelings that until then have remained unspoken between them. As they sit down, Alexander mentions her importance in the children's lives, expressing his gratitude for the loving environment she has brought to the house. Olivia smiles, touched by his sincerity, but a slight nervousness appears in her gaze, suggesting that she also harbors fears. Just then, Alexander plucks up the courage to make a confession. He admits that his feelings go beyond gratitude and that he feels something intense and real for her. He allows himself to speak frankly as he has never done before. Olivia listens, and her smile turns into an expression of surprise and emotion. She admits that she shares the same feeling, but confesses to fearing the possible consequences of a relationship, especially the impact on the children. They discuss their doubts and insecurities, but Alexander argues that the happiness they feel together can be the basis for everyone's well-being. He insists that the love that arises between them represents a new chance for both of them, and that facing challenges together can make the family even stronger. The openness between them results in a new resolution. They agree to continue with the relationship, but with patience, respecting the children's time and rhythm so that this transition occurs naturally. This agreement brings a sense of relief to both of them. They can live together more confidently and without the need to repress their feelings. Olivia continues to play the role of caregiver, but the complicity between her and Alexander becomes more evident. He feels that things are finally starting to fall into place, and the weight of uncertainty is slowly turning into hope. A few weeks later, Alexander decides to organize a small family trip with the aim of further strengthening the bonds between them. He suggests a weekend at a cottage by the lake, where everyone can relax and enjoy some peaceful moments. Olivia is excited by the idea and notices the enthusiasm of the children, who love the possibility of an adventure. Alexander observes their joy and feels sure that he has made the right decision in allowing Olivia to become part of the family's life. At the cabin, Alexander, Olivia, and the children share special moments. During the day, they hike, fish, and enjoy being in touch with nature. Alexander watches Olivia with the children, admiring the way she turns every activity into a fun experience. He feels at peace with her, and the atmosphere around them is light and harmonious, like he hasn't felt in a long time. At night, while the children sleep, Alexander and Olivia sit around a fire and talk under the starry sky. The rustic setting and the silence of nature create an intimacy that brings them even closer. Alexander feels completely at ease, as if there, in that instant, he has found a piece of the happiness he has been searching for. He realizes that there is no longer any room for doubt or fear. Olivia represents a new chance for him and his children, an opportunity to live a full and true life. Olivia mentions that time with him and the children is special to her and reveals her desire to build a solid and lasting relationship. Alexander is touched by her words and reciprocates with the same sincerity. They hold hands, and the silence around them envelops them, as if that moment sealed a silent promise between them. The next day, Alexander feels that the trip provides the perfect opportunity to strengthen the bond between them. Emily and Jacob show obvious joy at Olivia's side, and he realizes that the welcoming atmosphere she creates has a lasting impact. At the end of the weekend, he sees how happy his children are and feels that with Olivia, the family has finally found an emotional stability that seemed impossible. When they return home, Alexander feels a sense of satisfaction and peace that he hasn't experienced for a long time. He realizes that the future with Olivia and the children could be even more significant than he had imagined. The complicity between him and Olivia grows stronger, and they both feel ready to face whatever comes their way. They decide to continue their relationship cautiously, but now they both know that the mutual trust and affection they share are strong enough to overcome any obstacle. At the end of that night, watching the children sleep, Alexander mentally thanks Olivia for her presence in their lives. He feels that at last the house and the family have the chance to live a phase of happiness and harmony. Alexander understands that the love he feels for Olivia and the affection with which she cares for Emily and Jacob will become the basis for their future, and he feels prepared for this new path that lies ahead. As Alexander and Olivia's relationship develops, they both begin to build a solid foundation of trust and affection. Discretion remains essential to maintain the children's well-being, but the emotional connection between them becomes more and more evident. Olivia's presence transforms Alexander's routine into something new and meaningful. He feels grateful, realizing that every moment with her is a chance to start over. The peaceful coexistence between everyone in the house reinforces the feeling of harmony, and Alexander notices how the children are safer and happier. He and Olivia share simple gestures of affection, creating a relationship that evolves naturally. During the evenings, they exchange deep conversations in the kitchen, and Alexander is surprised to realize that he trusts her in a way he hadn't imagined possible. As the days go by, Alexander finds himself in a dilemma. He feels the need to make the relationship official and share this happiness with the children and those close to him. Discretion, initially necessary to keep everyone happy, now bothers him. He wants to offer his children a complete family image without secrets. During one of his nightly conversations with Olivia, Alexander mentions his desire to make their relationship public, but also expresses his fears about how Emily and Jacob would react to this change. Olivia listens attentively and suggests that perhaps an open dialogue with the children could be the first step towards including everyone in this new phase. Alexander ponders the idea and finally decides to talk to Emily and Jacob in a careful way. He prepares the ideal moment for this, creating a light and welcoming environment where the children feel safe and comfortable to listen and react freely. On a sunny afternoon, Alexander gathers the children in the garden and sits with them on the grass. He talks about how much he values their happiness and mentions how Olivia's presence has changed their lives for the better. Emily and Jacob listen attentively, and he realizes that their affection for Olivia makes the conversation easier. He gently explains that the relationship between him and Olivia goes beyond friendship, and that he wants her to be an official part of everyone's life. Emily smiles immediately, expressing her support with the innocence that characterizes her. Jacob, more introspective, remains silent for a moment, but soon shows understanding and acceptance, asking only if Olivia will continue to look after them with the same affection. Alexander, moved, assures them that nothing will change in this respect and that the love between them will only grow. The children react lightly, alleviating any fears he might have had, and Alexander feels that the first step towards a future as a family is taking place in a positive way. With the children's acceptance, Alexander feels more confident about moving forward and formalizing his relationship with Olivia. He decides to plan a special dinner where he can make a proposal that represents his commitment to her and the children. He devotes himself to the details, from the choice of venue to the dishes, all designed to make the evening memorable and meaningful. On the appointed evening, Alexander chooses a private restaurant where they can talk without interruption. He watches Olivia with affection, noticing the sparkle in her eyes as they share a special moment. When dinner is over, Alexander takes courage and, with a sincere gesture, holds Olivia's hand and mentions how much she means to him and the children. He thanks her for every moment and finally invites her to become an official part of the family, sealing their feelings. Olivia, touched by Alexander's words, responds with an emotional smile, accepting the request with joy and reciprocity. The feeling of complicity and happiness becomes even stronger, and Alexander realizes that the future with her is now real and attainable. At the end of dinner, they exchange a hug that expresses the depth of their feelings for each other and the promise that they will face the challenges together as a real family. On returning home, Alexander and Olivia find the children waiting anxiously to hear about dinner. Alexander excitedly tells them about their new step, and the children celebrate with spontaneity, filling the house with laughter. The shared joy marks a moment of unity for everyone, and Alexander feels that his family is finally completing a cycle of healing and new beginnings. In the days that follow, the new phase of family life settles in naturally. Olivia takes on the role of companion and mother figure more confidently, and the children show an affection and respect for her that goes beyond words. The house, once marked by silence and pain, now becomes a welcoming home full of life. Alexander observes how harmony prevails in every corner and feels fulfilled to have found someone who understands and supports him unconditionally. As time passes, Alexander recognizes that this new phase represents a definitive milestone in their lives. He, Olivia, Emily, and Jacob form a family built on love and the courage to overcome the past. Every moment together reinforces the commitment they all make to take care of each other, to build a full and happy life without fear. That night, as Alexander puts the children to bed, he feels the peace he has longed for. He reflects on how challenging the journey has been, but realizes that every step has been worth it.